Thanks, Kate.
Thank you. It is 20 to 7. Should private car parks be allowed to charge drivers up to £100 if they stay longer than the time on their ticket?
Well, a report from the RSC Foundation says drivers may have been overcharged by as much as £100 million in all and could possibly claim it back.
But if you stay longer than the time you paid for, isn't it right that you pay extra? Well, we've been asking drivers about their parking experiences.
The car parking facilities in town are really expensive. So, I mean, and if you park anywhere, and even if you're a minute late, you'll get a ticket straight away. So there's no point in taking that risk.
I paid the fine, within the 14 days because I didn't want to risk it going increase, and I didn't want the hassle of going to a court and trying to oppose it. They do make it clear, but it's all in small print, so it can be easily missed.
It's bad enough to get into work every morning and going home, and never mind starting thinking about trying to sort things out like parking tickets, so you just go ahead and pay for them, don't you? Saves the hassle in the long run.
Well, Jeanette Miller is a lawyer specialising in motor offences and joins us now. Morning.
Morning.
We only have to talk about parking and everybody is sort of incensed, but this refers specifically, doesn't it, to private parking spaces and what's been going on.
Yeah.
Is it obvious, first of all, that you are in a private parking place?
Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not obvious at all that there's any restriction on where you park. So I think that's part of the problem. But one of the issues that the report from the RAC highlights is the fact that there are so many appeals that are successful. I think it's something like 45%. So surely when there are so many appeals that are successful, it highlights a problem with the parking enforcement in the first place. But excessive charging in particular has been highlighted by the report as well.
So you can get, if you park at a train station, for instance, is that public or private?
It really does depend on the land and whether it belongs to the local authority or whether it belongs to a private company.
And the penalty that you pay for overstaying your welcome also depends on the owner of the property.
Exactly, and
So
that's part of the problem. I think there's a lot of confusion for the motorists. They have to establish, is this a private parking charge or is it a penalty charge notice, which is a local authority matter? And then there's two different appeal processes involved.
OK, so what do you do if you get one of these tickets and you don't think that you should have got it? What do you do?
Well, you have to establish, if it's a private parking matter, you have to establish whether the parking enforcer is a member of one of the two organisations that regulates the private parking enforcement companies. So the British Parking Association is probably the main one, but they have two different sets of rules for their appeals process. So there's a lot of free information on the internet, but it's up to the motorist to go through this arduous process of researching what they should do and then following the right appeal procedure.
I mean, a lot will come down then to the ruling from the Court of Appeal, presumably. So if it goes in the motorist's way, this is a test case, presumably, if it goes the motorist's way, then lots of thousands of drivers are going to be looking to get their money back,
It could well be a floodgates opening situation, and I think a lot of people could get their money back.
But you say that, but will people have had to hold on to the ticket, for example?
Well, who's to know? I think there would have to be some guidance issued by the relevant parking appeals processes rather than people just willy-nilly going and saying, well, that court was ruled in the motorist's favour.
Yes.
I want my money back. So there would have to be guidance issued about that.
Someone at some point should surely be determining what a fair penalty is.
Exactly, and that's another thing that's highlighted by the RAC report. Part of this has been brought about by the rules that were brought in to end clamping. And whilst one monster clamping has gone, another one has reared its head in its place, and that is this issue of excessive charges. And what the RAC is saying is that the legislation that was brought in to outrule clamping should have one word inserted in it, and that is the word reasonable.
Right.
So parking charge notices should be reasonable, and the word reasonable needs to be defined further, because that's what is causing a lot of problems. The private parking companies can pretty much charge whatever they want, and then it's up to the motorists to appeal it if they think it's excessive.
All right.
Thank you very much for talking to us. So we will be speaking to the British Parking Association at about 7:40. Thank you, in about an hour.